Guess Who's Coming to Skinner is a really lovely, really sweet episode of The Simpsons. This is the 10th episode of the 37th season. This is directed by Rob Oliver, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the events of the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And it starts off with Skinner taking the kids on a field trip. They think they're going to a water park. It's actually a textiles museum. I thought it looked great. That's my kind of field trip. The kids are bored though, Bart in particular, so he goes wandering and he finds a room full of snow globes. The animation is great, it looks brilliant. They start having a snow globe fight. Skinner walks in the room to obviously stop the chaos, and he takes a snow globe to the eye. And once he has healed, he's obviously been in hospital to have his eye treated. Afterwards, he calls Bart's parents in, and he calls Marge and Homer garbage parents, which is probably not tactful, but I can absolutely understand why he'd say that. And then it's spring break, and Skinner realises there is, as he describes it, a creature loose in the school. So he goes to Willie to get Willie to help, and it turns out it's just a boy. And the boy asks him what's happening with Skinner's eye, and he remarks that it's whimsical snow, which is a line I rather liked. And we learn that this kid is Hub, and Hub is a very difficult child. Skinner is obviously looking after him while he tries to work out where his parents are, and he ends up going to the quote-unquote garbage parents for advice because they are used to dealing with an unruly child. And Marge and Homer understandably laughed hysterically because the person who insulted them now wants their help. Again, I think their response was fully believable, and they do give him some advice. And then Skinner takes Hub shopping, and he saves his life because he goes into a ball pit and nearly chokes on the balls, and Skinner saves him. And there's genuinely a really sweet moment where Hub is really grateful for what Skinner has done. And then we have this really great montage of them doing loads of fun activities. The animation is great, and everything really shifts from this point on. And they go back to school after the break, and I don't know if I love what happens next. On the one hand, I can see the benefit, but on the other, if it doesn't play out like this, it could really backfire, because they're putting on a school play of Peter Rabbit, and Skinner remembers some of the advice that he received, and part of that is encouraging Hub's creativity, so he forces Hub to audition. And honestly, I don't love it. In the episode, it worked out well because Hub does the audition against his own wishes and gets a part, and he's actually really happy about it. So in this specific moment, that was good advice. But it does make me worry that if you have a child who's already badly behaved, or even just a well-behaved child, and you demand that they do something they really don't want to do, such as being in a school play, it could have serious repercussions. So it's maybe a little irresponsible to show that this is absolutely the way forward. Obviously for Hub it did work, and for some children it might also work, but I think it needed a bit more balance to kind of maybe suggest that this may not always work, so it's a little bit irresponsible, but at least with Hub, it did work out well. And it's really fun to see the rehearsals, the characters in their costumes. It is an absolute joy. And then it's show night, and Skinner, having not found Hub's parents, actually was carrying around an adoption form with him. Maybe a little premature, and it's not exactly how that works, but it was a really sweet moment where Skinner is realising that while at school he is sick of the sight of all of the children, when he can have this one-on-one, almost father-son bond with a child, it's a very different experience. And here we see Skinner actually thinking he might want that long-term, which in terms of the character development for Skinner, I thought was really effective. Not that it could be canon, we may never hear of this desire to be a father figure ever again. There are some things that have happened with Skinner that are definitely not canon, but certainly with this one, it would be nice to see if they do anything with this going forward. But even if they don't, and it's just a one-time thing, it is really sweet. Skinner drops the form, Hub finds it, he is already full of nerves because it's opening night, there are a lot of people outside in the crowd, and then with this form on top of that, he just runs. Skinner goes after him, and there is quite a heartbreaking moment where he calls him Dad. Well, that's what Skinner thinks. It turns out that Hub's parents are actually standing behind Skinner. They were able to track Hub down because there were posters all over Springfield with Hub's face on it advertising the play. And it turns out that they'd taken him to boarding school which he didn't like, so he ran away. Which is believable within the context of the narrative. I think that was an interesting way to take the story. I think it was believable enough. And then at the very end, Hub gives this speech that ends with the importance of being able to see more, which I rather liked. So it's a really sweet episode. It's problem-free for the most part, as I said. Giving advice to force a child to do something they don't want to do, yes, as we see here, it could be beneficial, but that's not always going to be the case. So that was definitely irresponsible. They should have been a bit more balanced there, but nevertheless, the episode itself is really lovely. I love this sign to Skinner. I'd say it's certainly very unexpected, and ultimately, it's just a really nice episode of The Simpsons.